My teammates had always told me how they wished that they had different things to help them, such as April tags, a battery cart, an actual robot cart to transport a robot to and from competitions, and more. But unfortunately, during the actual in-season, we were unable to do any of those tasks because we were more focused on building our robot and getting it ready for competitions. That's why after our last competition, we decided to implement an off-season, where we would start working on these projects so we can better ourselves for the next season. So in this presentation, I'm just going to do a quick who we are as a team, why we chose to do off-season, what we do during the off-season, a couple examples of different projects that we have implemented and succeeded in, events that we have gone to, how we started to prep for the in-season, continuous improvement for next off-seasons, and also a quick summary of tips and tricks that you guys can use for your teams. So good morning, everybody. My name is Riha Ibrahim, and I'm a senior at Totino-Grace High School. And I'm on my 7038 Totino-Grace Pizza Pies. I am one of our lead developers and overall co-captains.
Hi, I'm Brinley Fuller. I'm a junior at Totino-Grace, and I have been on build team since my freshman year.
So we're established in Fridley, Minnesota, and we were made in 2018. So this is about our 8th year. This is going to be our 8th year doing FRC, and we have 7 mentors and 21 members, and about 6 of those are freshmen. So we have a pretty good ratio of mentors to students, and we have also a pretty good ratio of boys to girls on our team. So one reason why we started to choose to do off-season was because we wanted to make our next season better with the help of different projects. For example, April tags, again, having a robot cart, and more. And so after the season had ended and between next January, we decided to identify projects that we wanted to focus on. And the goal for that was to complete all of the projects that we were set out to achieve and just, again, be ready for next season. So another goal that we had was to teach experience to our new members, such as freshmen and people who have just recently joined and who aren't as familiar with robotics, so if they didn't do FLL or FTC. We also wanted to focus on team bonding and through that, collaboration by these projects, because we didn't want anybody to work on a project just by themselves. We wanted them to have other teammates to work on them. And we also want to work on recruitment too. We wanted to have interesting projects that would draw people in and make them interested in robotics. But most importantly, we wanted to make sure that everybody had fun in what they did. So that way there was never a dull moment on our team. Everybody felt that they were being productive and useful.
So what do we do specifically in the off-season? We tend to have meetings about once a week. However, over the summer, it's a little more fluid than that. It's once every few weeks. And this just kind of helps us keep a cohesive line of thought throughout the team and throughout the season. And it helps us to address all the lingering thoughts we might not have gotten to at last practice or the season before and continuously address them. Through that, or to do that, we use our to-do list, which we tend to use Monday.com. However, there's multiple different ways to keep a team to-do list. We also tend to put it on the board at the beginning of practice as a way of organization and also a way of delegating tasks to different individuals. Another thing that we really try to prioritize in the off-season is teaching and educating new members that are coming in. Initially, before we had started to prioritize our off-season work and realized how important that was to our season and to our team's functioning, we didn't have all the onboarding information necessarily easily available for incoming freshmen. A lot of the times we expected or knew that they would come in with a certain level of skill based on their past interests. However, as we started to broaden our recruiting, we've realized that a lot of people might have interest in these things and might not have had accessibility to them or knowledge of them in their middle school and elementary school experiences. So, to deal with that, we've started designating new tasks such as making handbooks and teaching and educating through mentorship in our practices in the off-season. So those handbooks tend to include a breakdown of each section, so bill, code, business, and kind of the fundamentals you need to know in order to work with those things. And we also have a lot of students in the higher level, so seniors, juniors, that are captains of their specific team, and they also help a lot with the onboarding of new members in terms of teaching skills. So our first project that we majority addressed in the off-season was bumpers. Bumpers are not necessarily intricate to design, so they're not part of our regular team season. However, they are important, and they require a decent amount of time to get right and find the materials for. So there's a lot of skills associated with bumpers that one might not expect, such as sewing, fabric cutting, Velcro application, and other such things that are more working with material goods. And that's not necessarily directly related to our usual build season. So to be able to address that in the off season is useful. One of the reasons we really like our style of bumpers and the reason we try to renovate them or work on them in the off season is because we use bumpers that flip from blue to red, depending on which match we're in, and being able to do that increases our ease of access and it minimizes the time we need to change them instead of completely taking them off. So addressing that, cutting the plywood, attaching the brackets, all of those regular build season things that you might not have time for in the direct season, we do, especially with creating other bots such as tank bots. Those need bumpers as well, so you have to create much more of them in the off season.
Another really good thing with our bumpers was that we went from taking 10 minutes to switch them out from red to blue to about 10 seconds with the use of Velcro. The second project that we worked on was April tags. So within the past years, we have been getting close to figuring out how to do April tags, but we were unsure of how to fully finish the process. For those of us who are unfamiliar with April tags, they're essentially QR codes on the field that your robot can read and be able to tell the distance between it and the QR code. So based on that, you're able to perform specific tasks once you get into a certain distance. So for example, in the 2024 to 2025 season during Reefscape, if your robot wanted to place coral onto the L4 station, your robot could read one of the April tags located on the reef, and once it got to a specific distance, perform specific mechanics in order to place the coral. So that was our goal, and we wanted to use a Logitech camera, just like a simple one that you could find on your computer, and also use a Raspberry Pi processor to get this done. So I worked on this project with 2 of my other members and 1 mentor, and through this we were able to successfully make our camera able to identify April tags from any angle, even if there was some reflective glare off of it. And the main thing that we used for it was photon vision. And we were able to use the photon vision docks to help with this.
So I mentioned this kind of earlier when talking about bumpers, but a lot or a big project of what we do in the off season is tank bots. Tank bots don't necessarily have all of the design or challenge applications that you design in your regular season. However, they're very useful for events. So things like open houses, the state fair, although we tend to use our last season robot for that, but making sure that it's up to par for the state fair event after all the competitions. Tank bots, we use different drives. We use tank drive, and they're not as developed in that way. However, it's not necessarily necessary for them to be as intricate as our regular season designs because we're going to be letting others outside of our team use them to help interest them in our team. Particularly during our open house, which is very important, it's how we drum up a lot of new membership with incoming freshmen. We let them kind of drive it around, get a practical application for what that feels like. And another reason why that is so important in our off season is, again, with those freshmen and even sophomores moving on up, new members get the experience to be really hands-on with the build design before you're in crunch time of your regular season. So this helps them to develop those skills, maybe familiarize themselves with the tools that perhaps they might not have had going into it.
The fourth project that we looked at was fundraising. And the goal was to raise enough money for custom bowler shirts. This is because we felt that with our current t-shirts that they would just get grimy or just overall kind of gross during competitions. So we want to have a backup just in case for those days. An example of fundraising that we chose to do was through Gurdon's Flowers. So essentially what you do is that you buy a certain amount of flowers and then you're able to sell them to other people for $1 or $2, just as a nice gift for others. And then the day of, you'll give them the flowers, and with that money you're able to use it for whatever you need. So we found out this opportunity through one of our teammates, Boy Scouts, and through that we were able to raise a pretty good amount of money, about $100 to $200 with it. And we also made sure to emphasize our personal connections and use them to our advantage. So within our mentors, within our parents, potentially within the students networking, we made sure to use whatever that we knew to find other sponsorships and fundraisers that were available to us. And we also prioritize finding sponsorships through local businesses. For example, Bizall Manufacturing and Brink Brothers, which are both located in Fridley, Minnesota. We've had students who have interned at Brink Brothers, and also the grandson of the founder goes to our school for Bizall Manufacturing. So through those connections, we were able to secure fundraising through those teams. And specifically through Bizall Manufacturing, we're able to get custom-made parts during the in-season without having to pay too much money for it. And we're also able to get a hefty sum of money from them to help aid building our robot.
So Project 5 kind of coordinated with funding, but more specific, grants. Grants are a very important part of fueling our team and preparing for the next season. If you don't have the amount of funds that you need to be able to buy the parts for your robot that take it to the level you want it and that make it so you can apply the designs you have brainstormed and really thought over again and again, you need to be able to have the materials that make it possible to make those designs. So for example, our goal in this current off-season was to raise $30,000 budget. Now that's quite a hefty goal, and it requires a lot of effort from our business team, but it also ensures that everybody is working towards that goal and kind of keeping that number in mind when we are talking about it, or especially when we're bringing new members into business and just really helping them have a specific thing to shoot for. We find that specifically giving numbers, deadlines, that type of thing to your goals helps the team work in a more concerted way and connected towards completing it. As Reha mentioned, we utilize a lot of networking in determining our grants and fundraising overall. It's useful to be friendly. I mean, go talk to people. It's a large part of robotics. At the competitions, people are moving between booths, examining each other's robots, making connections. And it's not just about the design of the robot, it's about the people you meet, it's about socializing, it's about discovering new ideas, that type of thing. So it's very important. And one of our grants, our Haas grant, was actually through our mentor Dean, and he works there and just really optimizing as many things as you are aware of. You likely won't get all of the grants or majority of the grants you apply to, but really send yourself out there and don't be scared of it.
Moving on to events. One event that we participated in this year was the State Fair. So the State Fair Robotics event is essentially where you can sign up for a specific day of the State Fair. And on your day, you're able to demo your robot 3 times. And after you're done demoing, you allow other people, such as like little kids or adults, to drive your robot and show them what robotics really looks like. So our goal this year was to essentially promote robotics and draw in a lot of kids into the field, because we felt that it was so necessary, especially within this time of like growing technology. So we brought our old robot from the past season, and we let the little kids drive it, and it was overall a really fun experience for us. We were able to meet a lot of prospective parents and just overall great people through this event. And they were also really good. Like, I was really impressed with it nonetheless. And we had also placed 5th within the State Fair, which is a new achievement for us. The second event that we went to was the Robotics Inspires and Supports Everyone, or RISE event. So the goal of this event was to promote women in STEM, because there is a lack of women in STEM within the technology field, and especially within robotics. And sometimes the reason why you don't see many girls on like the build, CAD, electrical build, code part of teams is mainly because they may feel that they don't have a lot of experience, and they're worried that they won't be able to contribute as much. So this event was supposed to help with that and just push them into the realm of driving. And the rules were that anybody was allowed to help build the robot, anybody was allowed to help fix the robot if something broke, and anybody was allowed to help be a captain and also like a coach during the event, but only women and non-binary people could drive the robot. So the theme of this event was the Rescape event from the last season, and overall we had placed really well. We were within the top 5 and one of the Alliance captains. And overall, it was a great experience for us that we will for sure be going back to again, because we met so many amazing people and so many like-minded women who really inspired our team for the better.
So another thing is, overall, this is kind of what we've been talking about, but in more specifics, prepping for our in-season. Be ready for kickoff. That's our main claim. That's the thing we're working for in its entirety. That's kind of the goal we keep in mind throughout everything. there are a lot of small projects, as I'm sure you all know, associated with your bigger project. And a lot of times those get cast aside, neglected, not looked at as often, or not completely finished, but you're like 75% of the way there. And completing those tasks and getting them out of the way gives you a springboard or a steady platform to jump off of and make better improvements from for your in-season. Without that, you're going to be distracted, you're going to be a little scattered, you're going to have things that aren't quite finished or could have been a little better or better prepared. And really ensuring that you are keeping your efforts on that makes it so that you don't have to think about it in the in-season, which is definitely an asset and of value, because mental space is sparse at times during that season. Another thing, prepping for in-season, clean your space. We clean our space often. We also share it with our E3 program at our school. Organizing the materials that are yours, really making sure everything has a label, making sure people put things back where they're supposed to, because a lot of times if people don't know or aren't as familiar with the tools, they might put it somewhere that they aren't completely sure about, but it looks fairly similar, and that's how things start to get messed up. And that's no problem as long as we make sure to reevaluate and readdress that every so often.
So within the past years, we didn't really implement an off-season. Once our last competition was done, we would have our end of the year banquet, but then we would essentially go on our separate ways until a couple of weeks before kickoff. So because of that, there wasn't any work that was going on after we were done with our season. There wasn't any projects being done. We weren't really building on from what we had learned from the last season. So this year though, because we had implemented our off-season, we saw continuous work and continuous improvement within our team. We were able to see people learning new things and also new members trying things that maybe they had never even thought of before. And again, as I had mentioned before, we really only met up right before kickoff. But now that we're meeting so often, we're able to keep building the team bonds and also keep fostering collaboration between all of us. And again, there was a lot of like minimal improvement in past years, because once we were done with our season, essentially we would meet up within like November or December to strip down our robot from the last season, clean out our space, and essentially just be ready for kickoff. But this year, we've actually made sure to keep engaging people. We've made sure to make our next season easier and better for us. And we've made sure to keep fostering that collaboration between our teammates. So that way, even people who are new and who have never experienced robotics, they're actually ready for the in-season, and they're gonna know what it's like.
Talking more on continuous improvement, some things we haven't done in the past include the State Fair event or the Rise event that we found ourselves enjoying so much. So really looking out to your events in your area, especially for robotics, and getting in that community and talking to people, because a lot of times that's how you find out about them, can really help improve your team and give you more opportunities to test your robot and your robot's ability outside of specifically competitions, which is very important. I've talked on this before, but continue developing those new projects. Keep your mind on it. Don't think that just because you're not actively making the climb for your current robot or the build chain for your current robot that it isn't an important project for your team overall. And never stop searching for more objectives. Once you've run out of things to do, look at those broader categories for your team that no one really wants to broach yet because they're just so hard to tackle and they're more overwhelming. Maybe look at some things that you can put on the purchase list, some aspirations for the future. Just keep yourself moving in that motivated way during that season, even though you might not be meeting as often. And another recommendation that we have is obviously plan your future times extensively. And we know that majority of people kind of know vaguely when they're going to have their build done of their robot, when they're going to have their design done of their robot. We're saying put specific deadlines, put specific dates associated with that. Our team had a more vague understanding of when it would be done in the past, especially since we have a lot of people with extracurricular commitments outside of robotics, and we understood that we might lag in some areas at some times, but just get it done for the competition. That's not how we do it anymore. We need to have deadlines associated with it so you don't get stuck behind in either the design process or the build process. Those things can feel like they deserve more time and more debate than you have, honestly, because you don't have as much time as you think you have once you've started. So date your deadlines. And another thing, I know that specifically in onboarding new members, it can be difficult convincing them to meet over the summer or to commit that much time to those type of things until you're in a specific season. Especially people that might have been in sports before, they're looking for a specific season. They're like, when does this end? When does it start? What are my dates? People are busy. We recommend being understanding of the fact that people are going to have other commitments, especially if it's a year-long program, and understanding that meeting overall is still beneficial, even if not everybody is able to come to every meeting, but that their attendance is prioritized and wanted.
So we're just going to leave you with a couple tips and tricks and advice for your next season. The first one is to communicate with your members. Like, start a WhatsApp group, start a Discord server with your team. Always make sure that you're talking to your team, even if it's over the summer. Even if you're not going to see them for a while, just tell them new things. Like, tell them, hey, we secured this grant, or we're going to try out this new fundraiser. And sometimes our teammates, we just tell achievements that we personally achieved, even if it's not related to robotics. We still make sure to talk to each other, so that way it still feels like a community even when we're not in the same room with each other. And furthermore, make sure that everybody gets a voice on your team, especially new members. Because robotics is such a new innovative field, and with that there's going to be a lot of diverse ideas in minds. So if you don't have if you're not fostering a collaborative environment, new people will feel like that they may not have a place on your team, and they may not be able to tell their ideas that honestly might be the best option for you guys out there. So always make sure that everybody on your team gets a voice. Always make sure that even if they don't really know what's going on, try to explain the situation to them so that way they can get an understanding and they can give their suggestions. And finally, keep working on your guys' collaboration skills, because in our experience, it's just never enough. We always strive to make sure that we have as much collaboration in our team as we can. And for an example that we do, we always try to switch people up onto new projects that they're maybe not as familiar with. So for example, if you're on our build team, maybe we might move you over to a code team, so that way you learn something new and you're able to learn more things with your teammates, and also keep fostering that idea of collaboration on your team. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we have time for questions if anybody has any.
When you guys recruit your new members during the year, do you wait for September or?
Often we talk to the new members before, or kind of have a vague idea of who's coming due to our open house or those recruitment efforts, or a lot of times people are referred by friends, so they'll say, hey, I might have a new freshman friend coming in. But sometimes people do just show up and we don't necessarily know until that onboarding season where they're like, hey, I'll try this out, and then we discover that they want to be involved. So there's different ways of doing it.
So you don't have a set time to do the recruitment and start new kids?
We have a set date that the attendance list has to be finalized by, but that's a couple weeks into, when is it? This month? It's in this month, so it's later on in the school year.
Yes, we just make sure that anybody can join whenever they want, as long as they're there before that attendance deadline.
Yeah.
But sometimes it just takes people to realize, maybe I'm available this time, but maybe I'm not because of my other clubs.
Mm-hmm.
So we're pretty flexible with it. Dina.
Yeah, I'll add on to that. I'm one of the mentors for this team. One of the things we did this last year is in the April, May timeframe, as we got hold of the list, the email list of all the incoming freshmen for the fall, and emailed all them. We had a tremendous response from incoming freshmen, and we said, hey, come to these practices over the summer and check it out, see if you like it, get to know some new kids. So by the time school actually started, we had a bunch of freshmen who already knew each other, knew everything about robotics, and we got our hooks into them before all the sports kicked in and all that, and got a hold of them. So that was really helpful, I think.
Thank you.
Glad you enjoyed Rise.
Yeah.
I was wondering, how exactly did you guys make so people learn the other sub-teams, like what they do?
I would say that I'm obviously not as adept in code as she is. I'm obviously not as experienced in build as in business as our business captain is, because I majority do build. However, if I finish all my projects for today, if everything's kind of done, I might go over to another team and see what I can kind of help out with and experience in that way. And we recommend that. Often it's that build or code or business or code are completed or don't have something to do that specific day because they're waiting for parts to come in or something like that to continue working forward, or code is waiting for the build to be done. So at those times we just recommend, hey, come check out what you can do in the build room. Maybe you could print labels, maybe you could sew something together, maybe you could put that Velcro on the bumpers. Not everything is extremely technical in that way, and then you're experiencing the environment of that sub-team.
Yeah.
Do you guys have a limit on number of team members you can have?
No. So we welcome as many people that are interested in robotics. We don't ever have like a limit on it.
And can you only drive like a certain amount of people to like state competitions and stuff?
No. So we work to make sure that everybody who's able to go to competitions does go.
Thank you. And thank you for your question.
I had a question, but he actually answered. I was gonna ask when your open house was and like how far in the earlier season you start recruiting. But you said you started reaching out in April and May, and your open house is probably.
A few weeks
We-
ago.
Yeah,
So
we have
we have
one
two-
in the spring, one in the spring and then one just a couple of weeks ago.
Okay. Do you recruit at both?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so at our open houses, we normally have like a table for robotics, and we give out like different merchandise such as pins. We also have our last season robot there, and then some tank bots, so that way like kids are able to go, and they can actually drive both of them, we let them. And then we talk to prospective parents about our school, why they should come, and also why they should join robotics.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any final questions?
Thank you guys for your time.
Yes, thank you for
Thank you.
listening.